Hi, my name is Malik. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Cash Africa. One of the ways that our solution solves the problem in Africa is we initially came across a couple of ways that payments were being made that were not optimized for global standards, right? In the sense that today, if you want to get a debit card, you need to visit a bank or wait for a 7-day delivery, right? And there are moments where you make electronic transfers, and of course, those payments, they go through a lengthy wait period before they are successful. Our solution, the contactless payment infrastructure for Africa, allows you to, of course, access payments instantly via your mobile app and be able to pay in under 1 second, right? Meaning that we're able to build rails for payments that is faster than conventional methods. One of the ways Cash Africa assists banks and fintechs in bridging that gap between traditional and modern payments is, of course, globally, contactless payments is one of the leading ways to pay, right? Meaning that, in the US, in the UK, India, Brazil today, all you need to do is tap your phone on a POS terminal, right? That does not exist in Africa. And what we have built allows it to exist, right? We save banks massive cost, from the orientation of the cost of physical cards itself, right? Today, it costs about 2,000 naira to make a physical debit card. And this is excluding shipping and mapping and, delivery costs to the customer, right? With our solution, we're able to allow banks to save on that cost and deliver payment channels instantly at zero cost. One of the emerging trends in the African payment space today is the rapid adoption of wallets, right? So we've seen among millennials and Gen Z that people would rather just use a wallet to receive and transfer funds rather than go to a bank or join a queue like it might be done in the past. That's one of the trends that, of course, Cash Africa is also riding on. The fact that nobody wants to visit a bank branch anymore, right? They want to access payments from the convenience of their home. Contactless payments make sure that is eligible. I mean, your phone is already in your pocket. You already have your bank app. Merely just, clicking activate contactless payment on your mobile app instantly allows you tap to pay, right? Another trend is of course, the penetration of NFC, right? Today in Africa, I think as at 5 years back, we might have seen a situation where only 20% of mobile phones have NFCs, right? Today, every single iPhone from the iPhone 6, has NFC, right? And that exists in Africa today. More and more Android phones, up to 50%, have NFCs, right? And this is growing, at a continuous rate. So those are some of the trends that Cash Africa really does ride upon, and of course, that has aided our success up to this point. Africa is a very interesting market, in the sense that there's no much trust, right, in structural or government entities as you would have in more developed economies, right? So one of the ways that we sort of balance that international demand, right, with local expertise is that we build infrastructure that is tailored to the fraud sensitivity and the trust of the African customer, right? And internationally, of course, we adhere to global security standards, in terms of ISO certifications and, PCI DSS and, compliance measures, regulatory wise that, everybody in the modern world in the international market would adhere to. So that's one of the ways that we balance local and international variations in tech. Some of the most challenging issues that startups or fintechs face, of course, top of that list is regulatory hurdles, right? It's a very ambiguous regulatory space, down here in Africa, right? Meaning that a lot of times you want to be as close to the regulator as possible, and that's what we do at Cash Africa today, right? We try and keep the regulator in loop with what we are building, the feedback we're seeing from the market, and how data is changing, or what the data from the market is saying, right? So that we can sort of align with the regulatory position, or the ambiguity of the regulator. I think that's one of the major problems or challenges that I would say African fintechs would have to jump through. Um, there's a lot of digital transformation going on. I think Cash Africa tries to be one of those companies that is pushing innovation in itself, right? In the sense that contactless payment, it's not very popular down here, right? We try and be at the forefront of that innovation. We try and listen to the customer, and sort of build what people want, right? Specifically, and that's one of the ways that we're able to align that digital transformation that is going on with what we are building. My major advice in navigating product development is to build what is not perfect, right? Be comfortable building what is not perfect. To be honest, your day one is different from your day 100, right? So whatever you're able to build in the form of an MVP and sort of ship it out to your users, or to your testers, or a group of people that can get their hands on it and get real feedback on that product, I think that would be my biggest advice for anyone building in the fintech space, because you don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and finding out in the market that what you're building does not resonate or solve anybody's problem. So I think build fast, and just launch. A couple of frameworks actually, to even process payments, to start with. There's cumbersome regulatory policies that must be adhered to. Today, we are ISO certified, right? Meaning that, we are ISO certified for information security. We comply with the Nigerian Data Protection Council, right? The NDPC Commission, sorry, that allows us to, of course, conduct data audits on the data that we do handle, and the data that goes through us, or third-party data that we interact with. Of course, internally as well, we have a compliance department, where we also appoint a data protection officer, that of course navigates, making sure that we are doing what is right by the regulatory authorities, and just in general, or being able to deliver that data privacy to people that interact with our technology. Innovation while being compliant, although might be a bit paradoxical, but it is indeed needed. I think one of the advice I can offer is to be part of the sandbox regulatory program, if it exists in your country. In Africa, for example, in Nigeria, the central bank has a very, very nice regulatory sandbox where you're allowed to innovate, beyond the boundaries and confines of what is allowed, right? So, part of that sandbox, you're able to test, just like dream big without thinking this might be illegal. So being part of the regulatory sandbox of your central bank can be very, very functional and very, very materialistic towards your success while innovating. One of the ways that we incorporate NFC into our product, to address African needs is, if you just look at the data today, I mean, 23% of Africans have a debit card, right? Even though that is the most, popular form of payment after cash, right? Meaning that, if debit cards are the most popular form of payment, but only 23% of people have it, there's an underlying problem there in the way Africans respond to the ownership of a debit card. So what the NFC technology helps us to do is to turn the phone in your pocket into a debit card. And of course, we've seen numbers up to 80% of eligible Africans own a mobile phone, right? That means that there are more people with mobile phones, up to 3x the people with debit cards. NFC technology allows us to turn those phones into debit cards, right? Thereby addressing the challenge of instant payments and being able to access payments, in the first place. So that's one of the benefits that NFC has really helped us to accelerate. One of the ways that we navigate sort of that inclusivity in being able to access funding, right, is, fundamentally we try and solve a problem, right? We found that if you do solve a problem, it increases your chances of, getting that attention from investors, right? If you solve a problem and people pay you for that problem, um, you find out that investors do pay attention. Another thing is to attend as many tech conferences as possible, particularly in the UK, trying to meet as many VCs, people that exist in the sector, and, just sort of, putting that required grit of every founder, on the table to consistently push and, keep in touch and, update existing VCs in the space so that you can sort of get that attention driven to your business and possibly, be able to raise capital in the process. So we do not have a lot of problem in this particular area, in the sense that what problems we do face in terms of inclusivity of hiring, right? At Cash Africa today, we put in place very robust and transparent hiring process, right? And my co-founder, we try and focus on not hiring based off of familiarity or ethnicity, right? We have very robust process of hiring where we really do go for the best of the talent in the room and how we can sort of get that person into the company and get that person working for us. I think one of the benefits that you might face as a minority is that you might experience problems in a different way, right? I remember being in Woolwich for a period of time, and I noticed a lot of Africans love to still shop for African products, right? Meaning that somebody outside of that minority might not experience that problem, right? You being a minority, being able to experience that problem, which of course influence how you would want to solve either being able to provide African food or African logistics or African customer support, in the way that is understandable by, your minority group. So that really does shape sort of the type of products you build, right? In terms of trying to just respond to the problems that you face as a minority. And that really does help, in understanding the problem you are solving, while you're building your technology. I think one of the roles that BAME individuals or founders can play is to sort of contribute to that variety of opinions, right? A lot of times, the way you are raised, the problem you experienced, if it varies from what is publicly experienced by a large percentage of people, your contribution in the corporate environment can be better, or at least varying, right? So a lot of times when companies ship products, right, having BAME staffs or founders inside of that organization helps to increase the potential of the product being used by people of Black or minority backgrounds as well. Because, of course, there's some level of insight that is delivered by that staff or that founder in the first place to influence how the product will behave in the hands of the user. Yes, there might not be too many role models, but one of the things that we have seen as our reality is that there are role models that are good enough, right? That have done excellently well, right? There might not be a lot of them, but you do have to sort of look up to those people that do exist. So that's one thing that I personally try and do. The minority people that have succeeded, that have been able to break barriers, they do exist, and there's that opportunity to look up to them and even, of course, have them mentor you or sort of maintain a relationship with you in terms of guidance to help you scale your startup. So the few ones, as they say, less is more. So that's that's a go-to for us.